Reporter from More Perfect Union recently went to a Pennsylvania Trump rally, and instead of trying to find like the craziest people he possibly could at the rally, he actually tried to have a conversation with people and see if they might be able to find some common ground on something. Here's a little bit of how that went.
Why Trump instead of Bernie Sanders?
What I look at is more progressives like the Bernie Sanders faction, stuff like that. We actually see a lot of the same problems.
And I would vote for a Bernie Sanders before I'd vote for like a Ted Cruz or a Marco Rubio.
Things are more expensive. I think people are more scared.
Our money doesn't have no value, and that's why we're having problems. This whole inflation thing, it's been building and building for multi-decades, and it's getting close now.
You work at McDonald's, right?
I do.
Do you feel like you're getting everything out of work that you're putting into it?
I believe I should get paid more. All I am doing is I'm working my ass off to get my money. I'm a hard worker, and I feel like I deserve more.
I work down in West Virginia.
Yes.
Yep, on the rigs for evil Big Red, Halliburton.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
Halliburton, we were 2 weeks on, 1 week off, so you never got to go home. We were the lowest paid of all the workers out there. I only made $13.50 when I got hired on.
For Halliburton?
For Halliburton, yep. Probably wouldn't even have an Iraq war if it wouldn't have been for the Halliburton and Cheney and stuff. We were expendable. That's all it was. Halliburton, Big Red, they called it. You're just part of the machine, and the machine can be replaced.
Can you really trust a billionaire? Help me understand why that's a thing for you.
Yeah, so with billionaires, I would say honestly, no, you can't.
Yeah.
I'll say with Trump, when he debated Hillary Clinton in 2016, she said all these things about the tax laws, all this, and Trump said, where have you been for 30 years? You know, you haven't done anything about it. And then he said, I know you're not going to do it because all your donors who fund your campaign benefit from the same tax breaks and tax laws I do.
Right.
So whether it's left or right, these people, they're not really going to change the tax laws from the donors that are funding their campaign.
We lost our republic decades ago. We're living in an oligarchy.
And that reporter, John Russell, who not only does work for More Perfect Union, but also has his own Substack at The Holler, joins us now. Great to see you, my friend.
Good to see you, man.
Morning, everybody. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course. So just talk to us a little bit about your approach here. How did you, was this the general consensus from the people that you talked to, or was this like kind of cherry picking the things that overlapped with some of your, worldview?
Look, I poured drinks in the Rust Belt where I live. I'm above it right now forever. And, the county I worked in voted for Trump by 71%. So when, the bartender is like me, a white guy with a mullet, people kind of assume that you're on the same page. But when they find out I'm a card-carrying labor leftist, I make no bones about that. There's always shock that sometimes we are on the same page. This was the hunch that I brought up to that Trump rally. I wanted to have organizing conversations. What would it be? If we're going to have mass movements and really address a lot of our problems, it's going to require not half of the working class, but everybody in it. So I wanted to see what would it be like if you had those organizing conversations with people in line at the Trump rally. We featured the best parts that came out of there. There's a lot of crazy things in there too, but people are complicated. And if we're going to meet them where they are, you have to wade through that to get down to that class solidarity and see what's possible when you can get people into the same boat.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that the best part of the interview, we see how many people are out there being like, oh my God, this one guy at a Trump rally said something crazy, and it's like goes viral. Obviously, you took a different tactic here. What are some of the shared assumptions that you found whenever you were talking with some people at the rally?
Well, everybody, I mean, we really, if you step back and think about it, we live in unbelievable times, and we're all reacting to that in our own different ways. So the shared things were a sense of disbelief. Pick your issue. I mean, Elon Musk recently lost $200 billion, right? And somehow was still the second richest man on earth. You heard somebody who was working for Halliburton right there. He was making $13 an hour for Halliburton. And this was, there's a part of his interview that didn't make the cut. He said, we were pulling high double-digit millions of natural gas out of the ground, and we're getting paid $13 an hour. This is Elon Musk is losing $200 billion and being the world's second richest man. I mean, everybody, regardless of where you're coming from on the spectrum, knows that that's crazy. right? And we're all having different reactions about what to do about it. But a lot of the times the political landscape doesn't have a lot of alternatives to do something.
So, John, at this point, a Trump presidency isn't like a theoretical possible future. We lived through a Trump presidency. We know what the priorities were. They were class war, all right, but, you know, of the sort that we've had in this country for multiple generations at this point. His biggest accomplishment was this giant, you know, corporate tax cut, 3 cents of which went to the top earners in the country, et cetera, et cetera. So how do you still, based on your conversations with these individuals, but also based on your own analysis, how do you still hold on to this idea that he's going to be on the side of the working class when it just wasn't the case when he actually had the power of the presidency?
There's so many things to think about here, but we're really in the infant stages of trying to build working class solidarity. We haven't had the kind of movements that stick around and really work, not just on an election cycle basis at building working class solidarity, but, you know, over the long term, partly because you know, the status quo doesn't want that to happen. If the left and the right of the working class were to ever unite on the themes that came up in these interviews, reining in billionaire power, ending all these forever wars. If working class people got together on those things, we would have a lot to win. The ruling class would have a far way to fall. So those kind of movements have really been kept down. But, you know, you never really know what something's going to be like until you have it. So I think people are looking at Donald Trump and they're saying, well, you know, this guy who might go into a rally and do literally anything. I mean, hump the American flag, right? That's just one example. But it's a sure sign to people that this billionaire is not like the others. He doesn't fit into polite society that's handed down, you know, 40 years of this painful stagnation that we all kind of feel. Now, is he going to go to bat for the working class? Is he going to show up on a picket line like some of the people hoped he would in our interviews? No, I don't think he's going to do that. But the big point to me is that the folks at his rally, they want him to show up on a picket line. They want him to support unions. You know, we can all have our bets whether or not that's going to happen. But the big thing to me is that there is an appetite for anti-establishment, labor, left organizing among the people you would least expect to have that opinion.
Yeah, and there's been research from Jacobin in partnership with a think tank focused on working class politics. They've done a number of field studies testing different messaging, and they found exactly what you're saying here is that, listen, you're not going to convert hardcore Trump supporters overnight. But can you start to shift back some of the class realignment that has happened in the Trump era if you use economic populist messaging? Yes. On the other hand, you know, the issues that seem to be top of mind in a lot of ways among at least some significant portion of the Republican base are these cultural, like lightning rod, you know, transgender issues is big right now. CRT was big a minute ago. And so it seems like there's almost more interest, or the voting behavior tracks more with the cultural issues than it is with the economic interests that, you know, we see the polls of the number who want to curb corporate power and want to lift the minimum wage, et cetera, but that doesn't seem to be what dictates the voting behavior.
Yeah, my response to that is that it's not surprising because we all live in this environment of engineered division. It's not to cheapen any of those issues, but do any of us really think that there's a good faith discussion, that the reason why critical race theory is in the headlines has anything to do with a good faith discussion about anything in terms of racial equality? I mean, this is here. This is splashed all across the headlines with the intent to divide people, not to have a good faith conversation that should be part of building race and class solidarity. What we hear is, you know, an old divide and conquer tactic. I mean, there's a small group, 1% of the people, the merchant class, the super rich, they want to run things. They don't have enough numbers to do that. So they have to divide the working class and add their 1% to the 50% that hates the other 50%. I mean, really, it's simple to me, but I think we all have to remember that's what's happening and not take that for granted, because it's having, it's keeping us apart, and it's just a false choice. And we have to, if we're going to break ourselves out of that, realize who the division from all of these hot button issues that dominate the press, that suck all the air out of the room, that you could use to have a solidarity conversation. We have to realize who that division is serving. And people are smart. My beef with all of the videos that go up to these Trump rallies is it's like, oh, let's go stare at the zoo animals and let's pick out the craziest one so we can profit off of the clicks. No. If you have a conversation with people in line, they can understand that. They will say that back to you. But we got to get our politics in order in a hurry to do something a little more than just react to these hot button things that are, engineered and have been pushed for 40 years and financed with billions of dollars to generate the reactions that we see all the time in our politics. We got to get beyond that and actually talk to people.
That's really well said, John.
Yeah. Well, John, I've always appreciated your work, and I do recommend people go check out The Holler on Substack, because you're from the area, you live in the area, you work at a dive bar, like it's real for you. And so this image that comes from partisan media, whether it's, MSNBC or Fox News, of like, oh my God, we're on the verge of civil war. I live in a conservative area as well, where I grew up, born and raised. I used to live actually in the area where you live, and we're born and raised now. And it never struck me as being accurate. It never struck me as like a reflection of the people that I know and interact with and friends with in my day-to-day life. So I appreciate you doing some work to highlight some of the areas where there's potential common ground and things that we could build from. It's always great to see you.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, man. All right, we'll see you guys later.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.